The same car keeps driving past my house every night. It started about 2 weeks ago. At first, I barely noticed a car rolling past my house late at night. It's a quiet neighborhood, but not so unusual that it raised any alarms. I figured it was someone taking a shortcut, maybe a shift worker coming home. But then I started noticing the pattern. Every night, at exactly 2:37 a.m., the same car would pass by. At first, I wasn't even sure it was the same car, but the more I paid attention, the clearer it became. The car was always a dark sedan, old but well-maintained, with headlights that seemed a little too bright for its age. It never sped up, never slowed down, just crept past my house at an unnervingly steady pace before disappearing into the darkness. It wouldn't have bothered me so much if not for the fact that I started feeling watched. I began staying up waiting for it some nights. I could swear I saw a shadowed figure behind the wheel, but I could never make out any details. My paranoia grew one night. I decided to step outside as the car approached. I thought maybe if I stood on my porch, whoever it was would realize they'd been noticed and stop coming around. But the moment I set foot outside, the car didn't pass. The engine idled softly, the headlights glaring against the pavement. My stomach clenched. I felt like I was being dared to step closer to peer inside, but something in my gut told me not to. Instead, I retreated inside, locking the door behind me. When I peeked through the blinds a few minutes later, the car was gone. That night, I barely slept. The next day, I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe it was just someone lost, or a neighbor's friend, or relative, but deep down, I knew that wasn't it. This wasn't random. This car was coming for me. I decided to install a security camera. If nothing else, I'd at least have proof that I wasn't imagining things that night. I stayed up and watched the footage in real time, right on schedule at 2:37 a.m. The car came rolling by, but this time something was different. As it passed under the streetlight, the image on my screen flickered for just a fraction of a second. The car seemed to glitch, as if the camera couldn't quite capture it properly. Then, as it moved away, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The driver's head turned towards my house. Not in a normal way, it twisted completely around like an owl as the car kept moving forward. I slammed my laptop shut, my hands shaking. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, I considered calling the police, but what would I even tell them? That a car was driving past my house, that a camera glitch spooked me. They'd laugh me off the phone, so I did nothing. Then last night, the car came back, but this time it didn't drive past. At 2:37 a.m. I heard the engine rumble outside my house, but instead of continuing down the street, the car stopped in front of my driveway. My breath caught in my throat. I stared out through the blinds, my heart pounding. The driver was still inside the silhouette, barely visible through the windshield. For nearly 5 minutes, neither of us moved. Then the passenger door opened. I didn't wait to see what stepped out. I grabbed my phone and called the police. My voice shook as I told them someone suspicious was outside my home. The dispatcher told me to stay inside and wait for officers to arrive. By the time they got here, the car was gone. The officers checked the street, my yard, even the footage from my security camera, but there was nothing there. No car, no figure, just an empty street and a terrified man with a shaking voice. One of the officers tried to reassure me, told me to get some rest and call again if I noticed anything unusual. I barely slept. I've been up all night watching the street, waiting, dreading what will happen at 2:37 a.m. tonight. And now it's 2:36 a.m. The engine just rumbled outside.